Podcasting is more than just talking. It's listening. BSing with Bob Schmidt.
The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast featuring entrepreneurs, business, and marketers. This time around talking with Fox News contributor, leadership brander, and author of 8 books, including Doing It Right, the Stories That Make Us. It's Valerie Sokolosky, and I've had Valerie on my radio program many times, and I can't believe you actually married into that last name.
I don't know. You know, when I met my wonderful husband of all these many years, my name was Grant, and I'll never forget the first time I met him. I thought, oh, wow. And my immediate second thought was, oh, my goodness, that name. But it's okay because you know what, Bob? It's memorable.
That's true. So did it take you a while to figure out how to spell it?
Yes, and I still get asked, and that's okay. It's just more memorable, and that's what counts in life.
That's so true. So let's talk a little bit about doing things right, because the name of your latest book is Doing It Right. And so how do we actually do it right? Is it possible to do things right?
Well, let me just clarify one thing. The name of the book is Do It Right. And yes, to answer your question, you can either do it right and intentionally think about it, and then you'll do more things right. The way this came about in terms of the book itself is that I'm still doing a lot of business etiquette and professional presence workshops around the country. And so when I do that, I'm usually talking to emerging leaders who are wanting to know how to dress. So image is part of it. They want to know what kind of business behaviors are appropriate or not, because we both know times change. And then they want to know about how to be a good networker. So those are kind of the 3 buckets of my legacy program. So I decided to put them all in a book called Do It Right, and it's just a lot of tips. It's not a read book. It's just tip about these different areas. So that's kind of what it is, Bob.
So did it take you a long time to put together this book of tips?
It takes time to write a book, my friend. Yes, it does. And I'm still gathering information. Every time I'm with an audience, I will ask them to write down their top 3 questions in each of those categories. And from that, of course, came the book. What's really interesting, Bob, is it doesn't matter what level a person is at their career path. I can talk to entry-level college kids. I can talk to recent college grads. I can talk to CEOs. Everyone has questions about, well, now, let's see, what should I wear? Or, well, how should I approach someone at that cocktail party when I wish I weren't there in the first place? And so, it's like we all have questions, including me. I'm always learning. Aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. If there's a day that goes by that I don't learn, I tend to think to myself, well, I better either read some more or get on the computer or watch some television or do something in order to figure out, something so that way I can at least learn something for the day.
I bet that's really relevant for you and what you do, Bob, because you talk to so many people. You've got to be so knowledgeable about so many things. So kudos to you.
Well, I ask a lot of questions. I talk to people that are much more knowledgeable than myself, as why you're my guest, Val.
Thank you.
So let's start off with the wear. What should we be wearing when we're out doing things? Does it matter if it's like Christmas is coming up? So wearing something to a company Christmas party is probably different than wearing something to a networking situation.
Sure. I always make things simple. I'm a very simple-minded person. So here's the simple answer to that, and that is to ask yourself, how do I want to be seen? How do I want to be perceived? What's the message I want to give in this particular situation? So as an example, I was at a luncheon today, and it was a Christmas luncheon for an organization I'm in. And this organization is full of business people. So I wore a business-looking outfit. I certainly wasn't in business casual. I had a really nice jacket and shirt underneath it and my high boots, and I looked trendy but professional. And so I intentionally dress that way. So then this weekend, like many of us, we'll go to parties. I'm going to one this weekend, and it's much more casual. It's a come-and-go party. So I'm not going to be in a jacket, a business jacket. I'm going to be in a sweater set or something festive, great color that I know looks good. So that's really the simple answer. Just stop and say, what's the message I want to give to the people I'm getting ready to be involved with? One of the easy things to do when you're not sure is back to, first of all, what I said earlier, who are you meeting with?
Right.
You know, what is their, if it's a CEO of a big company, that would be different than a small business down the street and so forth. So still think about what's the message you want to give to that person and how would they, what's expected and respected.
Right.
That person would have in mind.
Okay.
Right?
Right. Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, what's expected and respected. And the other thing is for men, it's always easy you're never wrong in a nice shirt and a pair of slacks, and honestly now jeans, nice dark pressed jeans are great too, depending on your person you're with.
Right.
But then have a jacket maybe in the car to throw on or to walk in with and then take off.
Right. I guess it's easier to be a man and when it comes to dressing up than it would be for you or my wife or other women that are listening.
It actually is. Thank you for that. It is. But that's why people need my help, right?
Oh,
Women.
Absolutely.
No, you do have a good point, Bob, because there are so many options with women. And so I will still say, though, when you have a jacket, that immediately ups the game. So even for a woman, if it's a blouse or a shirt or whatever, and you throw a jacket on, you immediately raise the bar. So it's still the same philosophy in a way.
Does a sweater work in place of a jacket for a woman?
Oh, sure. Yes,
Okay.
A sweater works just fine. Sweater brings it down a little bit, but it's still sort of that in-between jacket. And there are some great sweaters out there this year.
Well, I've even noticed, too, that more women are wearing those scarves, the endless scarf, if you know what I mean. It's like one piece.
The circular scarves,
yeah.
Right? Scarves are, you know what? Thank you for sharing that, because a scarf for a woman can be a great accessory. You can wear scarves all kinds of different ways. Yes, there is that continuous circular scarf, and that's in. But there's all kinds of shapes of scarves. If any women are listening, I would Google and go onto YouTube and search for ways to wear scarves. There's a ton of little videos out there showing you different ways to tie the scarves. But you can take one outfit and throw different scarves on for different situations, and really have a whole new look. It's like jewelry. It's an accessory.
So the book is called Do It Right, and I'm sorry for getting it wrong earlier. Do It Right. Part of it is about what to wear. Part of it you mentioned is networking. What was the third part?
I hesitate, Bob, to say etiquette. People don't like the word etiquette, but I'm known as the image and etiquette person, so why should I fight with that?
Right.
But business etiquette changes, doesn't it?
I believe it does, yeah.
It does. There are things that are not as stiff. We're a much more casual business today, and most except Wall Street. If you're on Wall Street, you're on Wall Street. But business itself tends to be much more engaging. Companies are doing everything they can to drive engagement, and one of the things that they are finding is that by walking around as a leader and being more engaging themselves and having a dress code that isn't the old stiff dress code, being more business casual in some industries. And yet, I will say, I'm just getting ready to go to, as an example, Florida Power and Light, which is called Nextera now. And they bring me in every year to do a 2-day program on exactly what I'm sharing with you, because they want they're from director level up. They want their people to dress with a jacket. Yes, take it off when you're in the office, but they still want that professional look, and that's Florida Power and Light. So you really have to know what the industry is and what that company in the industry expects.
Let me ask this then, because we both know that the way that people dress is different than it was like when my dad was working. It's different than it was when we were growing up. Does that mean that the quality of work has slipped at all because of the slacking of the dressing?
The only time I hear that it does make a difference is when someone gets a little slovenly with the business casual.
Right.
People, if the company doesn't, here's an example. If a company doesn't say what a business casual looks like, then people are all over the ballpark. In fact, Bob, I actually wrote it. You mentioned 8 books. Well, one of them is called Business Casual. Clarify, please.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that some people have, like, they have to specify closed-toe shoes because some people would show up to work in those flip-flops or sandals because it said comfortable shoes, but not say, not those flip-flops.
You're right. A few years ago, I couldn't believe this, and I'm telling you a true story here, I always do, of being asked to come into a law firm, a downtown law firm. And they said, I want you to just walk around and you can observe before we bring you in what we are bringing you in for. And sure enough, now these are lawyers. Some of the women did come in not flip-flops, but those clogs. Mm-hmm. And here they'd have a business suit on and clogs. We don't know what we don't know. People don't know what they don't know. You've got to tell them. If they say business casual, what does that look like? And that's my advice to any listener. If you're wanting to know, you're going to an event or to a party or to a job interview, ask if they say it's business casual. Say, well, what does that look like?
Funny that you say we don't know what we don't know, because my dad would always say that when we were arguing when I was a kid. He'd be like, you don't know what you don't know. And I remember when I turned about 16 or 17, Valerie, I looked at him and I'm like, you know what, Dad, you're right. I don't know what I don't know, but you don't know what you don't know. And that kind of shut him up.
You asked me a minute ago, so I went to my book and opened up the table of contents, what's in it. There's some other things like wine etiquette, travel etiquette. I put in something on disabilities, working with people with disabilities, international etiquette, things that just aren't common sense.
Well, things that probably a lot of people don't have as a regular thing. One of my best friends has a disability, so I know how to deal with people with disabilities. But when it comes to like wine and things like that, I'm not really sure. When it comes to international types of etiquette, I have no clue whatsoever because I haven't had that experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hopefully they'll find it in the book.
Yeah, the book is called Do It Right. And you also mentioned that it's about networking, too. So what's the proper way to go out and network with somebody?
Perhaps this has happened to other people. It certainly has to me. When you walk up to a group, hopefully people will give you eye contact and smile, which body language is saying, come on in, right?
Right.
But there have been times when I would walk up to a group of, I don't know anybody in this whole conference, and I walk up to a group and they're all busy talking to each other. They've probably been talking to each other for a while, and no one gives me any eye contact or welcoming body language. And if that happens, I just smile at somebody and turn and leave. That's about all you can do. But when you are able to walk up and someone welcomes you in of sorts, just listen to what's being said and nod and smile. And if people are gracious, and most people are, someone will welcome you and say, oh, well, what's your name? And give you that opportunity to say something. But don't feel like you have to just walk in and start conversing, because you don't. You can learn a lot more, frankly, listening than doing all the talking.
If you're just sitting there listening, sometimes people might get uncomfortable because they may think that you're eavesdropping or something along that line.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Hopefully you don't have to stand there very long before someone will bring you into the conversation. And again, if that's happening and they just keep ignoring you, then you just smile and you graciously walk away.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned graciousness, and Christmas is coming up, and I know that your latest newsletter is talking about gravitate toward gratitude, and gracious and gratitude are very similar. So let's talk a little bit about gratitude, if you will, and things to be thankful for, especially since my favorite holiday of the whole year, Valerie, is Thanksgiving, and that just passed. And the reason I like it so much is because it's a good meal. There's no expectations. There's family and friends around, and you just have the chance to smile and to be thankful for things.
Right. I wrote that newsletter, and I got more hits. I write something on gratitude fairly often, and when I do, and particularly this one, for the one that you're just mentioning, gravitate toward gratitude, got so many hits. People really resonate with that because it's so true. What do we hear when we go to events or to a business meeting or just having coffee? We hear complain, vent, what I don't have, what isn't happening. And the real reality is, and this is all psychological with a lot of proof behind it, very simply, I will say, once you start focusing on what you do have, focusing on things that are working for you, focusing on things you are grateful for, pretty soon your attitude just changes and life starts giving you more things because you're gravitating toward a heart of gratitude instead of a selfishness of I need. There are wealthy people I know that just give and give and give, and they're happy. There are people who don't have a lot of money, and they still find ways to give of their time, of volunteering, of a pat on the back. It doesn't have to be money-oriented. And these people are the people who are happy people.
The people that you'd mentioned some people with a lot of money that give and give and give. I know a couple of people like that, and it's amazing to see how happy they are. And I also have some friends that have nothing, and they give over their time, and it's amazing to see how happy they are and how everything is bright and sunshiny,
Well, I would encourage listeners to do what I did when I wrote the article and that research. I always try to find research behind anything that I stand firm on. Research psychological benefits of gratitude, and you will find what I did. There are really benefits physically, emotionally, and psychologically to people who are grateful. The other thing I'll tell you just quickly about that is that a couple of years ago, a group of women got together and we decided that we would every day write down, or at least say to ourselves first thing in the morning, here are 5 things I'm grateful for. And that became a habit. And to your point, at the end of the year, every single one of us said, oh my goodness, this year was so much better than last year. And I think it had something to do with what our mind is feeding our mind.
That's pretty amazing. So did you write down all the different 5 things that you're thankful for every day?
Every day. I kept a diary. I did. Every single day. I actually did it at night just before I'd go to bed, I would grab that notepad that I had and I would just write down 5 things that I was grateful for that day. I'll tell you something that just happened last week. I was doing a workshop for a healthcare organization, and everyone at the table, the leader of that team, gave everyone a little Christmas ornament that was a frame, just a little picture frame. It wasn't expensive. It was just a picture frame. And she challenged her team for everyone to write something they were grateful for this season and put it in that frame and hang it on the tree. That's a cool idea.
I was going to say, I bet you that turned out to be a pretty cool tree, right?
I would think it would. They all took it home and said they were going to, each person said, yes, I'm going to do that and put it on the tree.
That's really cool. What do you think? What are you thankful for? You mentioned you have 5 things every day. What are a couple of examples of things that put a smile on Valerie's face?
Only 5? I'll start with health. I will start with health because when we have our health, we have everything. And there's so many horrible diseases and stuff that's going on in our environment, in our world. So health would be one. My family absolutely would be number two. Doing something, you and I talked about this on another show, doing something I really love so that it's not work. It's just what I love to do every day. Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for being able to cook for family. That's my passion. I love cooking. And so I'm grateful when I can get in the kitchen and relieve stress by cooking. That's what I do. Goodness, I could go on and on. What about you?
As I'm thinking about it, some of just the simple things like that I can turn on a light switch and it turns, or that when you flush a toilet that it doesn't, overflow. Or that when you turn on the radio or the TV that there's stuff there, or you open up the newspaper and that there's words to be written and to be read. I mean, there's just so many different things out there that personally I'm grateful for. And you'd hit the nail on the head when you mentioned family and, just the simple things in life, like going out and having a fire or drinking a beer with a friend, or, mm-hmm. There's just a million things that personally I find that I'm grateful for, that if I wouldn't have had the time to sit and just think about it, you take a lot of that stuff for granted, unfortunately.
Well, I'm glad you took it to such a simplicity. I was sort of going up in the bigger sphere there, and you're so right. A fluffy pillow, a warm comforter,
yeah.
You're right, a glass of wine at night. Yes, you could go on. And I think if people just stopped and did that one time, just sat down and wrote, they'd find there's lots and lots and lots of things.
Well, here's something that's weird too: is a cold foot and a warm bed, because that means there's somebody next to you.
That's true. And you know what? If there isn't someone next to you, think about the friends that you have, or the people that have supported you that day in something, or mm-hmm. said something nice. That's another thing. How often I will challenge your listeners, how often do you say something nice to someone during the day? Not just smile, hi, how are you? But you look really pretty today. Or you seem to be happy. Hope things are going well with you. Anything, just paying a compliment.
Right.
When I do that, and I don't do it every day, I'm not saying I'm Superwoman, but when I remind myself to do that and do so, oftentimes someone will almost look shocked. Like, oh, thank you. Like it's a surprise.
Valerie, sometimes it's just the simple things in life that help us to do it right.
It's so true. So true. Name of the book was fabulous, right?
Absolutely.
Good name.
Absolutely it was. So how do we go about finding that book or any of the other 7 books that you wrote? 8 total, 7 including that, or 8 including that one.
Well, there are 2 that are up on Amazon now. My books were with a publisher, and gratefully the publisher gave me the rights. Well, I decided, instead of being a distribution center myself that I've been all these years, I decided to put it up on Amazon, put them up on Amazon through what's called Clear Space, Create Space.
But they're print on demand, right? Or
print on
Kindle?
demand,
yeah,
yes.
Kindle, print on demand type books, right?
That's right. So the 2 that are up are Do It Right, and one called Monday Morning Leadership for Women. And it's written for women, although leadership is leadership. But the publisher already had a book out on men's leadership, and he said, well, why don't you write one for women? So I did. And those are the 2 that are up on Amazon. You can just go right to Amazon.
Valerie, let me ask this. Is leadership different for women than it is for men?
Shouldn't be.
Okay.
No, good question in that. And I always say, don't say that's a good question, because all questions are good. But I just said it because I don't know why. Sometimes I hear women say, well, I have to be different. One of the things that I got involved in, Bob, about 12 years ago, when the personal branding buzz started, mm-hmm. I was trained and certified and have been doing that work with people ever since, personal branding. And that's really what it is. It's helping people uncover their very depth of who they are at their core and feeling good about the fact that they can come to work bringing their whole selves. And what do I mean by that? Well, one man who had a very high, he was a CFO in a financial services firm. And so he went through the personal branding process, and it's all that, and then it's how do you bring and market your visibility in a way that's authentic and not spin. You never want to do that. And how to live your brand every day. That's really the three pieces of it. Well, as we worked together, he sent out an assessment, which is an assessment that I have. It's a 360 brand assessment. It isn't like a company's. It's sent out to anyone that knows you and could give you honest feedback. So it's more about what's your reputation out there. So you send it to business people, you send it to friends, family, mentors, professors, and so forth. Well, the results came back, and it was really interesting, Bob, because this man, in the group of people that had anything to do with him at work, never once mentioned that he was humorous, that he had a sense of humor, that he was quick-witted, nothing. And everyone on the other side of the coin that knew him outside of work all said something about what a fun guy he is, great sense of humor, the life of the party, blah, blah, blah. So in debriefing, the conversation was like this. Well, I'll call him Bob since that's you. Well, Bob, how interesting is this? So what do? Do you leave your suitcase full of humor at the door when you walk into work and then pick it back up when you go home? And he quickly said, yes, I do.
Why would he?
Really? Really? Is that what you do? Oh, yes, because humor isn't what should be exposed in the workplace at my level. Well, can you imagine? Now you know me well enough on the air to know that I'm very real. And the conversation from there went to all the aspects of, well, why do you do that? And is that an assumption? And are you sure? And frankly, you're just not being who you are. How does that feel? He said, well, it's kind of stuffy at times. The end of the story is he gave himself permission to try some humor in the office. And little by little, he just cracked a joke once in a while, or he had something interesting but humorous to add to a conversation. And the end of it is he said, it's so interesting. People come into my office now. Now, this is a CFO, okay? Mm-hmm. People come into my office. They say hello in the hallway. And he realized that he just wasn't allowing people to really know him and the real him. And the real him was really a very easygoing guy instead of this, I am the CFO.
Right. It's
funny. That a great story?
That's a great story. And the part that I like best about it, honestly, Val, is that when you said that he gave himself permission, because I think that a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to do things or to act the way that we would normally around business people. And I think that we really need to give ourselves that permission to let go and to be who you are.
Well, and frankly, it just takes way too much energy to be somebody you're not.
Amen. That is totally true. ValerieandCompany.com for more information. Valerie Sokolosky, used to be Grant. Sokolosky, right? Sokolosky. Valerie Sokolosky. It's funnier
when you mess it up.
Oh, I know.
That's okay.
Valerie, have a very Merry Christmas. Thank you for spending time with us. The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is brought to you by Orange Computer. Find them online at orangecomputerlax.com. And by Tri-State Sound and Light. Find them online at tristatesound.com. Tell your story with microcasts by podcastforhire.com. The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is a Podcast for Hire production.